video, I'm going to walk you through how to make the Mini Squishmas Santa Gnomes. So these little guys are perfect for gifts, decorating your tree, teacher's gifts, craft tables, all kinds of things, because they work up super quickly because they have no sewing. So the only thing we need to do at the end is to embroider the little belt buckle on the top. To make these guys, we are going to be using the Hobby Honey Bunny yarn. And I've got white, silver, gold dust, red, I think it's tomato in this line of yarn, cream and black. And I am going to do the body in gray and the hat in red for the next one I'm making up here. And then I've got some stuffing, my crochet hook. I'm using a 5.mm H hook. I like the Clover and Moor ones. And then I've got my notions over here. Make sure you have stitch markers. We will need them for attaching on the nose. And then I also have an ornament hanger here because I am going to add these to my tree and also use them as teacher's gifts this year. So if you are wanting to, you can follow along with the free version on my blog at darlingmapledesigns.com. That link will be provided below for you. And if you're wanting to purchase the premium PDF pattern, it also includes bonus gnomes. So it's got the snowman gnome and a reindeer version of the gnome included within that paid PDF pattern. Okay, so let us get started. And one thing I should add is that you can adjust the speed of the video by hitting the video, tapping the video, and then going to the top right corner, the cog button. If you click that and then go to adjust playback speed, you can either speed up or slow down the video to your liking. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so let's get started here with the nose. So for the nose, we are going to start with a magic ring. And I know magic rings can be a little bit scary with the chenille type yarns, and that's okay. If you're not comfortable doing a magic ring, then chain 2 and place all the stitches for the first round into the second chain from the hook. So right here I have my magic ring, and I'm going to keep everything loose for this first round. So for the first round, we are going to put 6 single crochets into our ring. So I'm doing this all very loose for the first round so that I can still close my magic ring. And 6, then close your ring. So there's a bit of a knot over on this side, so I find if I pull out this stitch a little bit, it helps to close. Okay, so that is round 1. We're going to put a stitch marker in here in our last stitch, and we're going to move on to round 2. Round 2 for the nose and beard, we are just going to move right into the next stitch. This is my little chain 1. This is my first stitch here. So if you're unsure of that, you can count backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is where I'm going to place the first stitch of round 2. Now I'm not going to join or chain or anything. I'm just going to go right into making my single crochet stitch. So to begin round 2 we are going to be increasing from 6 stitches up to 12. So to do this, we need to put 2 single crochets into each of the 6 stitches. I get my stitch marker for my last stitches. All right, so there's the end of round 2. And our next round, we are going to single crochet in each stitch. So for round 3, single crochet in each stitch around. 12. Go. Now for round 4, we are going to do a single crochet decrease in each set of stitches. So we're going to go from having 12 stitches down to having just 6 stitches, all in one round. So a single crochet decrease. We're going to do that 6 times. So I am doing an invisible decrease. And if you're unsure how to do that, there's a more detailed video in the beginners playlist that's listed in the description below. Okay, so that is round 4. Now I'm not going to stuff the nose or anything yet, but I am going to stick this tail inside so it's out of our way. So next up, if you're making a beard, we want to mark out the back loops of the next 3 stitches. So this will help us later when we are crocheting the nose on. So we can see here that we've used this stitch in this decrease here. So we're going to start with the back loop of this stitch. It can be a little bit tricky the first couple times you do it. Okay, so you may not be able to see there. Let's grab the needle. But there's another loop here. This is my front loop, and then I've got the stitch marker in the back loop. So do that for these 3 stitches, because once you've worked in the front loop to make the beard, it's hard to find the back loop to attach the nose onto the body. So if we hold our stitch, hold our back loops here, it'll make it easier for us later in this process. I'm actually going to close all of these so they can't jump out on me. Okay. Now, what I forgot to do was when I did this last single crochet decrease, I forgot to switch to my other color. So I'm going to stick my hook back in here. Oh, it's too tight. It's not going to work. So we'll do this stitch again, and this time we'll remember to add in the white for the beard. Okay, so if you're doing a beard, the beard's going to be worked over the next 3 stitches in the front loop only. So again, these back loops, they are secured here with our stitch markers so we can find them later. And then what we need to do is find these front loops. So there's one there, and here, and here. Those are the ones we're going to work in to make the actual beard. So to start the beard, we want to go into this front loop of the first stitch, and we're going to start with a slip stitch in it. Okay, I'll tighten down my yarn a little bit. And then to make the first strand of yarn, I want to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to come back along this chain, and starting in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to slip stitch in the next 3 chains. 1, 2, and 3. So that brings me back to that front loop of the stitch, and I want to single crochet again in there. So when you're reading the pattern, everything that's in between a set of brackets is going to be worked into this the same stitch, so the front loop stitch. So we're going to make another strand of hair, still working off this first front loop stitch, and we're going to chain 5 this time. And then we're going to move back along the chain, and starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch in the next 4 chains. chain 4, and then this time, instead of slip stitching into this stitch, we're going to switch brackets and put our slip stitch into this next stitch here. We'll slip stitch into here. And then what we're going to do is we are going to chain 6 to make another strand of hair. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll tighten up that first one a little bit. And then starting in our second chain from the hook, we are going to slip stitch in the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we are going to slip stitch into the same stitch again. And we're going to start another piece of hair. This time we're going to chain 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And starting in our second chain from the hook, we are going to slip stitch into the next 5 chains. Okay, and then we are going to move on to our next stitch here, and we're going to place a single crochet into that next stitch. Okay, and then we're going to make our next piece of hair by chaining 5. And then starting in our second chain from the hook, we are going to slip stitch in each of the next 4 chains. Okay, and then we'll slip stitch in the same stitch again. And we still need to make one more piece of hair, so we're going to chain 4. And starting in the second chain from the hook, we'll slip stitch in the next 3 chains. And then we're going to finish our beard by slip stitching in the same stitch we just worked in. Okay, so then we are going to end off and tuck in our ends. I just tuck them inside the nose since it's going to need some stuffing eventually anyways. So there we go. We have our beard all ready to go. Leave those stitch markers in there because we're going to use them as a guide when we're attaching the nose and beard onto our gnome. All right, when we come back, we're going to start the body. Okay, so now that our little nose and beard are complete, we are going to get started on the body. So to begin the body, we want to do a magic ring again. You can use your chain 2 method if you prefer. Remember to do the stitches loosely. For round 1, we're going to do 6 single crochet stitches for round 1. I've already done 1 here, so 5 more. We'll close up our ring. There we go. All right. And then I'm going to mark the last stitch and we'll begin round 2. So for round 2, we want to increase in each stitch. So 2 single crochets in each stitch. So we're going to go from having 6 stitches up to 12 stitches. Okay, so for round 3, we are going to go from having 12 stitches up to 18 stitches. So to do that, we're going to single crochet in the first stitch and then put 2 single crochets in the stitch after that. We will alternate all the way around. 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochets. So again, we'll go from 12 stitches up to 18 stitches. Okay, next up is round 4. So for round 4, we are going to add in our little bobble stitches for the feet. So I have black ready here. The first stitch is just a single crochet stitch. So we'll do that, but we're also going to change color in the last pull through of this stitch to prepare for our bobble stitch. So change your color, and you can just leave this loose because we're going to use the end of the yarn to tie to the beginning here once we're done our bobble stitch. I'll show you what I mean. So to bobble stitch, we need to yarn over, insert our hook into this next indicated stitch here, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over through 2. So we're doing the beginnings of a double crochet stitch 5 times, and then we're going to pull them together at the top. So I do have detailed videos on how to do a bobble stitch. But basically you want to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over through 2, and you need to do that 5 times. And so you'll have 6 loops on your hook. So we need to do it 2 more times. And all of these parts are being worked into the same stitch here. And so when you get your 5 sections and 6 loops on the hook, you want to grab the body color that you're using to do the final yarn over and pull through all 6 loops on the hook. And then what I do is I tighten down the black ends a little bit just to help my bobble stitch pop out a little bit more. And then I'm going to do a single crochet in the next stitch just to secure it down before I tie up my ends. Keep that pretty tight so the bobble stitch sticks out more. And then I'm going to cut the black yarn. And I'm going to tie both tails together. Now you don't want to go too tight. You want to make sure you still have a black stitch here, because that stitch you need to work into when you get to the next round. Okay, so we already have 1 single crochet here after our bobble stitch, and we need to have 4 more before we add our other foot. So single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Oh, and on this 4th one, we want to change our colors over again. Almost forgot. And then we're going to do our bobble stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into this next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over through 2. Then we're going to repeat that 4 more times. Yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over through 2. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over through 2. Do that 2 more times. Okay, then once we have 6 loops on our hook, we are going to grab our body color to yarn over and pull through all 6 loops on the hook. And we'll tighten down the black a little bit. Remember not to pull too hard because you'll lose your stitch here, plus the yarn could snap on you. And then we're going to make sure we're working in our next stitch here, keeping it all nice and tight. Do a single crochet. Okay, and then I'm going to go back in here before I forget and cut my black yarn. And I'm going to tie that off. There we go. Okay, so to finish the rest of the round, we need to single crochet in the next 9 stitches. We've already done the 1, so we need to do 9 more. So at the end of this round, we will still have 18 stitches. Each bobble stitch just counts as 1 stitch. Okay, so there's the end of round 4. Now rounds 5, 6, and 7 are just straight rounds, so you'll just single crochet in each stitch around. So you'll have 18 stitches at the end of each of those rounds. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and then I will come back for round 8 to show you where to put your arms. Okay, so I completed rounds 5, 6, and 7 off camera. And again, they were just single crochet in each stitch around. So we still have 18 stitches. And I've just at the last stitch of round 7, because I'm going to color change and grab my cream colored yarn for the hand. So we're going to color change on the last pull through of that last stitch on round 7. And then we'll begin round 8. So for round 8, we are going to start with a bobble stitch again, just like we did down here with the feet. So yarn over, insert your hook, hook a loop, yarn over, through 2. We want to repeat that sequence another 4 times. Yarn over, making sure that we are working into the same stitch for the whole bobble. Okay, so now we have 6 loops on our hook, and then we are going to grab our gray yarn, and when we yarn over this final time, we'll use our gray yarn and pull through everything. And then I'm going to tighten up the cream colored yarn, both parts of it, just to help tighten up my bobble stitch a little bit. And then I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch. And then I'm going to take the time here again to cut my yarn. And then we'll tie it off and continue on with our round. So we need to do another 6 single crochet stitches. We've already done the 1. We need to do 6 more, and then we'll get to the next bobble stitch. And on the last pull through of that 6th single crochet, I'm going to change color. Okay, and then we're going to do another bobble stitch. So yarn over into the next stitch, little loop, through 2. Repeat that little sequence there 4 more times. Okay, so now we have 6 loops on our hook. We're going to grab our gray yarn again. Yarn over with it for that final one. Pull through all 6 loops on the hook. I'm going to tighten down both ends of the cream yarn, and I'll do my first or next single crochet just to kind of secure everything while I tie off my ends. There we go. Now the one thing you want to check is that your arms are still centered on your legs, because depending on how you construct your stitch, they may have traveled a little bit to the right or to the left, depending whether you're right or left-handed. There aren't very many rounds in here in order to create that difference. But if you need to, you can always do an extra single crochet stitch over here before you start your bobble, and then do your bobble stitch. So these are pretty close to centered here. So I'm going to leave it like this. So to finish off round 8, I'm going to single crochet in the last 8 stitches. I already have the 9th one in here. So now we're going to single crochet in the next 8. All right, so on to round 9 here. Round 9 is when we're going to start attaching the beard. So what we're going to do is we are going to attach the beard right here in these center 3 stitches. So we have 7 stitches total between the 2 arms, and those middle 3, that's where the nose and beard are going to sit. Okay, so let's crochet over to those first. So we need to crochet it. Do a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. All right, and then we're going to grab our beard, and you want to make sure the beard is facing the feet, and you're going to place the stitch markers up against the next 3 stitches of the body. So this is why we have the stitch markers there, because it'd be really hard to see your stitches otherwise to be able to crochet them on. And what we want to do for the next stitch is we want to go from the inside of the nose to the outside of that back loop, which looks like a front loop now that we're turned around here. We go through from the inside of the nose to the outside, and then we're going to come over here to our next stitch of the body and go from the outside to the inside the same way we made the rest of our stitches on the body so far. And then you're going to single crochet those 2 sections together. And then I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and we'll do that 2 more times with the next 2 stitches. So we're going in the back loop of the next stitch, but we're going from the inside of the nose to the outside, and then from the outside to the inside of the body stitch. And we can remove that stitch marker as well. And we're going to do that one last time here with this guy. Okay, so that's the tricky part done. Then what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet in the rest of the stitches here. So we will still have 18 stitches, but 3 of them will be attaching this nose and beard combo. And 12. So make sure that you still have 18 stitches, because for that last round we had to work a stitch over our bobble stitches, and we had these 3 stitches, so it's a little bit more complicated than some of our other rounds. So make sure you still have 18 stitches. And then we will move on here to round 10. So for round 10, what we're going to do is join the top of the nose. So far we have this bottom part figured out, but then we still have these 3 stitches sitting up here on the nose. So what we're going to do is we're going to come around, and when we get to this part, we are going to skip over 3 stitches here, and we are going to single crochet in these stitches instead. So that'll leave a hole. So if you haven't stuffed your nose, that's okay, because there'll still be a hole left to be able to stuff it a bit later. So we are going to start by single crocheting in the first 3 stitches, just like we did in the last round. And then instead of working these 3 stitches of the body, we are going to jump over to the nose. Here's our first stitch. We're still going to do 3 single crochets. They're just going to be in the nose instead of the body. Okay, and then we're going to make sure that we've skipped 3 stitches back there. And then we're going to jump back to the body, and we'll do a single crochet in the last 12 stitches this way. And there's our last stitch. All right, so you can tuck, make sure your tails are tucked in here to the nose. But there we go. We've got our nose and beard all crocheted in. Next up, we're going to start the brim of the hat, and then partway up the brim, we are going to attach it right onto this body. So for now, we're going to end off the body. I'm just going to slip stitch to the next stitch. To do that, you don't need to leave a tail for sewing or anything, because we're not doing any sewing here. Okay, finish that off, and then just stick that right in the body there. And we are going to move on and start the brim of our hat. Okay, so moving on to the brim of the hat, we have a couple options when we start. One is to do foundation single crochet, so to do 24 foundation single crochets. The other option is to chain 24 and then join in a loop to start. So I'm actually going to do the chaining method today, but you can use whichever one you want as long as you have 24 stitches to start your second round. So I have 24 chains, and then what I want to do is I want to join my chain with a slip stitch. Okay, so we're joining with a slip stitch in that first stitch. You can do a little chain 1 in here if you want to start. I'm just going to dive right into a single crochet in this first chain, and then I'm going to single crochet in each of the next 23 chains as well. So I'm going to do this round off camera, and I'll meet you back for the start of round 2. Okay, so for round 2, first you want to make sure that it's not twisted, and then we're going to single crochet in each of the next 24 stitches. So you should have 24 stitches to start, and you will also finish with 24 stitches.
Okay, so for round 3 of the hat, we're going to do a decrease round. So we're going to go from having 24 stitches down to 21 stitches. So to do that, we are going to single crochet in the first 6 stitches. And then we're going to do a single crochet decrease across the next 2 stitches. And then we're going to repeat that 2 more times. So single crochet in the next 6 stitches and then single crochet decrease. So we're doing it a total of 3 times. And we will end with 21 stitches. Okay, so for round 4 of the hat, we're going to single crochet in each stitch around. So we'll start with 21 stitches and end with 21 stitches. All right, round 5, we are going to do another decrease round. So we're going to go from having 21 stitches down to 18 stitches. So to do that, we're going to single crochet in the next 5 stitches. And then do a single crochet decrease across those next 2. And we'll repeat that 2 more times for a total of 3 times. So single crochet in the next 5 stitches and then single crochet decrease. So again, we're going to start at 21 stitches at the beginning of this round and we'll go down to 18 stitches. All right, so now at round 6, we are going to crochet the hat onto the body. So you can choose any point on the body you want to start this. I usually try to put the end here towards the back of the gnome, but you don't have to do that. We're just going to place the hat around the body of the gnome. The nose kind of gets in the way a little bit, but it will sit here. And you want your stitches lined up. And for this entire round, we are going to work the 2 pieces together. Because both pieces have 18 stitches at this point. So we're just going to crochet everything together. So I'm going to go into the hat and then into the body. And do a single crochet stitch. And we'll do that for each set of stitches all the way around. So we will still have 18 stitches at the end. Now this can get a little bit tricky to line up your stitches where you ended off here, just because sometimes that last slip stitch can be counted as a stitch. So if that happens, that's okay. Just come back and take it off. I said, it gets a little bit trickier around the nose. Once we work up the hat, we will flip the brim of the hat up, and so it will fit better on your gnome. And then our final stitch. So if you want to make sure that you have all the stitches attached, you can flip this up and you'll be able to see if you skipped any. And also double check that you still have 18 stitches. And then we'll move on to round 7 of the hat. And just before we hit round 7, I'm going to do a color change. Now, if you don't want to have the belt on the hat, that's okay. Don't worry, don't do a color change here. Just stick with red or whatever color you're using for your hat. I'm going to color change to black for these next 2 rounds. And I'll stick my stitch marker in there. Okay. So when I color change, to avoid having an obvious jog in the stitches, I do a slip stitch to the back loop first, and then I do a single crochet in the under both loops of the stitch. So then when I come back around, I'm not going to do anything with this slip stitch. It's just going to sit here and I'm going to skip right over it. So for round 7 here and 8, you're going to single crochet in each stitch around. I'll do that off camera and then I will be right back. Okay, so I'm on the last stitch here of round 8 and I'm going to color change again. So I have not cut my red yarn. I'm just going to carry it up the inside of the hat here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the black yarn because I'm not going to need that anymore. And then I will tie both tails of black together. Because it only went a couple rounds up, this will secure it nicely. And we'll just tuck those tails into our hat. Okay, so now to start round 9, again with the color change, I'm going to do a slip stitch in the back loop of the next stitch. And then I'm going to do a single crochet under both loops of that same stitch. So the same way that I did down here, and see how it left a pretty minimal looking jog. So that's because when you work around for the next round, you skip over this slip stitch. There is a tutorial specifically for how to do that, so it is listed below in the beginner playlist. Now to start round 9 here, we are going to do a decrease round. So we are going to go from having 18 stitches down to 15 stitches. So I've already done my first single crochet here, and I need to single crochet in the next 3 stitches as well. So you're single crocheting in the next 4 stitches technically there. And then we're going to do a single crochet decrease for that 5th stitch. And then you want to single crochet in the next 4 stitches again. Followed by your single crochet decrease. And then we'll repeat that one more time. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches. end with a single crochet decrease here for a total of 15 stitches, because we aren't counting this little slip stitch here as a stitch. We aren't going to do anything with it. It's just kind of sitting there. Okay, so that's round 9. For round 10, we are going to single crochet in each stitch around. So we will have 15 stitches still at the end of this round. Our last stitch there. Okay, so this is the point where you may want to start to stuff your little gnome. You can flip up his hat now because we're high enough up. And make sure when you're stuffing that you put a little bit of stuffing in the nose here, because we can still see, I might be able to bring it out to show you, there is still a hole there where the nose sits. So this guy, he doesn't need too much stuffing because he's just little. We'll add that in before our hat gets too narrow, especially if you're using a thinner yarn than this. It may get a little bit trickier to add your stuffing in. Again, make sure you get a bit of stuffing in the nose. Okay. So you can stuff it more in the other rounds, but I like to get started here. Okay, now our brim's a little wonky here. Let's pull her back down. There we go. Okay. Around 11, we are going to decrease from 15 stitches down to 12. So to do that, we lost our stitch marker. So to do that, we're going to single crochet in the next 3 stitches and then do our single crochet decrease. Decrease here, and we'll repeat that 2 more times. So again, we're going from 15 stitches down to 12 stitches. All right, in round 12 here, we're going to go from 12 stitches down to 9. So to do that, we want to single crochet in the next 2 stitches and then do our decrease. Take out the stitch marker because I'm afraid I'm going to knock it out anyways. Okay, so we have 9 stitches now. So on to round 13, we're going to go from 9 stitches down to 6. So to do that, we'll single crochet in the next stitch and then decrease. We'll do that 3 times. If you want, you can add more stuffing in here. It's getting a little bit narrow now. I like to use the end of my hook to add that final bit of stuffing in. You'll notice I took out my stitch marker because I find it just kind of gets in the way once my rounds get this narrow. Okay, so we're down to 6 stitches here. And then our final round, we're going to go down to 4 stitches to make the point of our hat. So before we do that, I'm going to grab a little bit more stuffing to add in the top. You may not even need stuffing in the top here of the hat. It would still look good if it was just left without stuffing. Okay, I think I'm going to add a bit more in actually. Okay, then for our final round, we're going to single crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to decrease, and we'll do that twice to go from 6 stitches down to 4 stitches. All right, then we're going to end off by slip stitching to the next stitch. You don't need a tail. Well, I guess you need a little bit of a tail just to cinch up those last 4 stitches. So I've got a few inches here, which I think will be enough. If you wanted, you could add a bell or a pom-pom to the top of this. I'm just going to leave it as is for now. So next up, we're going to just do a quick belt buckle there on the front of our hat. Okay, so there is still another end here at the brim of the hat to weave in. So go ahead and weave that in. And then we're going to meet here to put on our belt buckle. All right, it's time for our belt buckle. So I have about 18 inches of yarn here. I'm just going to thread my needle. And I'm going to start by working just here at the top of round 8. So just where that color change happened. And I'm going to go under those 3 stitches there. Pull until I have a couple inches left here. And then I'm going to come and go back through those same stitches. And then come back again to where I inserted my needle originally. And then come out 2 rounds down. So right again where the color change happens. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo this brim so that you can see better. We'll come up down here because then we're going to start the side of our belt buckle. So I'm just going to go and do each part of the belt buckle twice. So now from this corner down, and we're going to go back up to this corner, and then we're going to jump across 2 rounds, or yeah, 2 rounds below this top corner. Okay, and then we'll jump back over here to the bottom left. And we're going to go to the bottom left here and come out the top right. Then down to this corner and up. And then once more, oh, I didn't come up high enough. There we go, fix that. And then we're gonna go through that same set of holes again so that we finish up in this top right corner where our tail is. And then what we're gonna do is just tie it off quick and weave in those ends. We'll stick them straight into the hat, pulling the knot in as we go. Just use the end of your needle to fix that, or you can put the whole tail through your needle and pull it through. All right, there we go. Now we have our little gnome. That's it. That's all we do to make our little gnome. I'll cut off this end piece, and then I'm just gonna add a little hanger here. And again, I got these little hangers at the dollar store. You can just stick them in, close them up at the bottom, or you can just use them for a cute little plush toy. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.